The role played by the C-47 Skytrain in D-Day remains a testimony to boldness, power, and determination. Looking back at the operation on June 6, 1944, it was a major amphibious assault in history that was to liberate Nazi-occupied Europe. The Allied forces launched Operation Overlord against enemy lines. The mission's main aircraft, the Douglas C-47, a rugged and reliable aircraft which alone carried 13,000 military personnel behind enemy lines. These troops were supposed to sabotage the German defense system, secure important locations, and ensure safe landings by the planes carrying Allied forces. The C-47, which was introduced as a civilian DC-3 airliner, became the symbol of hope and resilience during wartime. Among these planes, there was a lead aircraft for this mission, called the That's All Brother. This was not just an aircraft, it was a living threat with a loud message to Adolf Hitler, signaling terrible destruction for Nazi Germany. This documentary explores how the C-47 and how its paratroopers played their part in making D-Day successful, which changed the course of the Second World War and defined the future. On the night of June 5, 1944, where the majestic C-47s thundered across the skies of Normandy, bearing 13,000 paratroopers into one of World War II's most audacious missions. They are often called the workhorses of the sky. These planes were the unknown heroes of D-Day. Without them, it would be impossible that the greatest amphibious invasion in history could have occurred. The C-47 delivered paratroopers behind enemy lines to capture bridges, roads, and towns, helping create doubt among the German forces. This uncertainty had great importance. It very much delayed German reinforcements and gave the Allied forces on the beaches a chance to fight back. The leading aircraft, That's All Brother, was led by Lieutenant Colonel John Donaldson. It represented the courage and fortitude of the Allied forces. These troops that it carried faced unimaginable threats. Heavy anti-aircraft fire, scattered landings, coupled with the heavy weight of their equipment. However, their bravery turned the tide of the battle. The C-47 carried more than soldiers. It carried hope, freedom, and a day of victory. After the war, it was sold and repurposed to civilian use. In 2015, historians and aviation recruits rediscovered its significance, leading to a restoration to its original wartime condition. Today, it has become a flying museum and pays tribute to the brave men who flew into battle during World War II. D-Day, officially referred to as Operation Overlord, was the largest amphibious attack ever. The forces involved in the landings at 5 beachheads in Normandy, France, included more than 156,000 Allied troops, some 7,000 naval vessels, and over 11,000 aircraft. The ultimate goal here was simple: secure a foothold in Western Europe, then liberate areas controlled by the Nazis. The stakes could not have been higher. Another small mishap could have given Germany precious time to fortify its defenses, thereby prolonging World War II and threatening thousands of precious lives. Success would mean the turning point of the war, and it would force Germany to fight on multiple fronts, effectively weakening Germany's stranglehold over Europe. The part played by the airborne proved to be reliable in holding down the key positions inland, leaving no time for German reinforcements to reach the beaches and resist the invasion. The story of the C-47 starts with its civilian predecessor, the Douglas DC-3, which is regarded as a revolutionary aircraft that really changed air travel in the 1930s. Most airplanes before this time were made mostly of wood and canvas. Before the DC-3, air travel was thus not only unreliable and expensive, but potentially fatal. In the early 1930s, various designs were being experimented on by various aviation companies. However, it was the Boeing 247 all-metal passenger plane that set a new standard. Unfortunately, it could not accommodate a lot of passengers in its cabin, and hence, Transcontinental and Western Air were in search of something better. Donald Douglas and its crew came up with a design for the first DC-1, which shaped into the advanced DC-2, which soon outdid the airliner by Boeing. But the big break for the U.S. came in 1935, with the arrival of the American Airlines new creation, the DC-3. It was bigger, had greater passenger comfort, and was able to provide non-stop service between major cities like New York and Chicago, thus shortening flight times. By 1939, the DC-3 was carrying 90% of the airline industry's passengers. As World War II got closer, military leaders came to notice the aircraft's potential. The Pearl Harbor attack in 1941 brought the U.S. into the war, and thus the need for a rugged, reliable transport plane. Interior luxury finishes were pulled out of the DC-3, and they had a camo paint job instead to serve the war effort. Yet demand still widely exceeded supply, and to meet this need, a new military variant emerged, the C-47 Skytrain. The C-47 was strong and highly adaptable. It could carry 28 fully equipped paratroopers and 6,000 pounds of cargo, or tow a glider into battle. By 1944, production ramped up rapidly, with Americans manufacturing an aircraft every 34 minutes. Rosie the Riveter women played a significant role in the construction of these planes. One of the most astounding industrial achievements of the war, the C-47 soon became a lifeline for Allied transport operations and proved its worth in all theaters of the war, from the Pacific Islands to the deserts of North Africa. The C-47 was a superior cargo plane carrying over 13,000 paratroopers into battle in the Allied invasion of Normandy. Each plane could carry 28 fully equipped and 6,000 pounds of cargo. Over 800 C-47s were involved in the airborne operation. Over 156,000 Allied troops landed on the beaches with support from 5,000 ships and 11,000 aircraft. Casualties on D-Day exceeded 10,000, with a confirmed 4,414 Allied deaths. The C-47, also called That's All Brother, led the airborne assault, and its success was crucial in securing vital bridges, roads, and drop zones. After dropping paratroopers into Normandy on D-Day, C-47s continued to play a vital role in supplying Allied forces during D-Day and after. The job was far from over. Once the paratroopers had landed, C-47s continued to serve in the supply chain, bringing in supplies, evacuating the wounded, and supporting Allied war efforts. As one of its key missions, supplying ground troops was certainly an important task undertaken by the C-47s. Troops that had landed in Normandy quickly ran out of ammunition, food, and medical supplies. Roads were dangerous. German forces made it difficult for supplies to reach through land. C-47 accomplished this by dropping supplies. They flew low over battlefields and dropped crates of supplies attached to parachutes. Thus, the paratroopers, together with other soldiers fighting at the front, had what they needed to sustain themselves in the battle. To ship new reinforcements, the C-47s were another important member of the operation. Additional troops were needed to be brought into Normandy to help support those already in combat right after the airborne assault. The C-47s flew in more soldiers to reinforce the Allied positions. They also towed gliders filled with soldiers and assorted supplies into battle, landing as close to the battle zone as was possible. They were also engaged in the orderly evacuation of wounded soldiers. While battles raged, thousands of troops found themselves injured on the battlefield. Many of these men were generally in need of urgent medical care, which was not available in the battlefield. C-47s, converted into airborne ambulance carriers, carried the sick and injured on stretchers, and with medical staff present during that time, they ferried the wounded back to England for proper medical treatment, thus saving countless lives. The C-47 squad faced many dangers during these missions. They had to fly at low altitudes, making them easy targets for German anti-aircraft guns. Some planes were shot down, and many pilots and crew members lost their lives. Nevertheless, the C-47 crews kept flying, knowing that their missions were vital to the success of the invasion. The other important functions of the C-47s was carrying fuel for the advanced Allied forces. As the Army moved inwards from the beaches, tanks and vehicles were in need of gasoline to keep running. The C-47s flew missions to land fuel to swoop in to help sustain the momentum of the invasion. Without the delivery of this fuel, the advance would have slowed, allowing the Germans to regroup and fight back. Rest assured, beyond D-Day, the C-47s served all through the war. Moreover, they were used in many airborne operations such as the liberation of the Netherlands, Operation Market Garden, and the Rhine River crossing into Germany. Not just an aircraft, but indeed a lifeline of the Allied forces on D-Day and after. C-47s carried thousands of paratroopers into battle by flying them behind the lines of the biggest airborne invasion in history. These planes not only dropped troops, but were also helpful in resupplying, evacuating the wounded, and helping maintain the pace of the Allied drive. Indeed, without the C-47, the success of D-Day could have been entirely different. That's All Brother took the lead on June 6, 1944, marking the opening of the campaign that would eventually liberate Europe from Nazi rule. The bravery of paratroopers, pilots, and all the other crew aboard such airborne craft is proof of the teamwork and sacrifice demanded for the victory. The legacy of the C-47 can be seen to this day, and its potent reminder carried by museums and air shows of the incredible courage of those who flew and fought on D-Day. As the C-47 boomed into action on that early morning of June 6, 1944, they would be remembered in history not just for the invasion, but for an incredible turning point of war. The men jumping from the planes risked their lives in battling towards their objectives. In today's world, the C-47 Skytrain stands as a symbol of courage and endurance. From preserved planes to flickering memories of their legacy lives on.